talking.
Welcome back to the Maria Sanchez Show. We're live. It is Monday, November 22nd. So if you're seeing us at 4 o'clock Pacific, that would be now Standard Time. That'd be us live. And we're hoping to capture you while you're at work. You just kind of minimize it down there and you watch what you can and you listen to what you can. And then when you get home, you can log on. We post every day's archives onto the website. It takes an hour or two to get them up there, but if you've missed something, you want to see what you did miss or whatever, you're welcome to go, and it's pretty user-friendly. We expanded the website last month, and we're doing so again. This is technology as it keeps unfolding. We're staying abreast of it, so it'll get even more user-friendly than it is now, although we're getting nice compliments and comments, I should say. So if you find something that you would like us to pay attention to, let us know, because we are user-friendly in that regard. So welcoming to the program, Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner.
That's right.
Marianne Rooney. Marianne, welcome.
Well, Commissioner-elect, I guess.
Okay. Oh, right. When do you get installed?
I get installed on January 10th.
January 10th. And
but things have already started, you know. I mean.
Really? With the acclamation?
Sure. Well, you know, a day after the election, I mean, it all just kind of hits, and phones ringing, emails going, you know.
And I should mention the first female.
The first female harbor commissioners here. I'm so excited about that because I had a lot of women supporting me. I had a lot of women behind me, and it really, I mean, I felt bringing everybody along with me. So it was exciting.
Well, what I've noticed, and we're similar in terms of our careers and where we've been in life, that it used to be that because there was a token woman or just somebody who managed to scrape their way in or up or whatever, that women were not necessarily collaborative professionally because it meant that their position was in jeopardy or vulnerable because there was one chick in the room type thing. I've seen probably in the last 10 years that has not been the case anymore, that we don't have the old boys network necessarily, but we're not threatened by, we're actually happy for, can do what we want, how we can to help a woman succeed, to mentor a woman, to whatever. And I think that that is the best thing that could have ever happened for our gender.
Well, I'm sure all of us have worked for, you know, the total crazy before, but I think that there is a trend to having people be more collaborative, and especially in this kind of environment where resources are very tight, you have to be collaborative. I felt it a lot when I was running for office and really noticed that there are a lot of women out there who want you to succeed. And I feel that it's incumbent upon us to mentor younger folks, to bring them along, to show them the ropes. And during the campaign, I worked with a new, I will say, she's a new trustee in Pleasant Valley School District. I worked with her. It was her first time running. So I reached out to her even though I was in the middle of my campaign and said, look, let me help you. Let me give you some strategies, because the National Women's Political Caucus provides training to women who are interested in sitting on a board, being elected to an office, whatever it might be, provides training to them. And so I figured that as a member of that organization that I should do that. And not only because of that, but because we need to help them move along. And so it's fun.
What's interesting about that, and I almost hesitated to say the first woman, because I am so looking forward to a day when we can make those pronouncements, and that's not part of the sentence.
Yeah.
But still, in fact, we had Condoleezza Rice, the first
female Secretary of State.
Right, and then we had Katie Couric for anchoring her own newscast on her own. I mean, so we've seen a lot of those still unfolding, and someday it won't be that anymore. It'll just be about this is the candidate that won.
Right, and especially with politics, you know, we are underrepresented in the House, and we need to really have more representation there. The NWPC is looking at equality, you know, in all levels of government and everything. So for me to start out as the first harbor commissioner, great, you know, that's a good way to break through. And, you know, it's shifting a bit. And I really believe I played the card. I mean, I openly played the gender card because to me it was an important topic. Back since 1927, when they were talking about the Oxnard Harbor District, it was always just a bunch of old white guys sitting around and talking about how are they going to do it. And when you start bringing in women, different races, you bring in a diversity of thought. And to me, that's where the power is. when you bring all these minds together that think differently, that's where you come up with creativity, you come up with innovation, and that's really where you're going to take and move whatever organization forward.
And I bet some people could say, well, wait a second, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you're going to bring diversity to it. But women do multitask better.
We think differently.
Sometimes have more challenges in terms professionally, because I used to always say when I started my career out as a State Farm insurance agent.
Oh, okay.
And my dad was an agent, so that was what I knew. And I used to joke that it was going to be, my dad's last name is different than mine, but Kramer and daughter.
Yeah.
How often do you see that?
That's right.
And then I was single, too. And so I was surrounded by men who were married. And so I used to say, I got to get me one of those wives because, you know, they work for free. They feed you when you get home.
Yeah.
They take care of the house when you're, you know, whatever, because they all had stay-at-home wives, too.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they helped them be their first secretary, you know, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it was a different world.
Well, I think it's going to be different too because being the first woman commissioner, you know, you now have to be concerned about buying women's T-shirts and other kind of things too. It's kind of a joke, but not really. But, you know, I mean, it really is a man's world. The port has been, you know, you've got longshoremen, you've got tugboats, you've got lots of people who work for the district, and it's very, very heavy on the male side. So not that I'm coming in with any agenda to say, look, you know, let's just change it all to female related. It's not it at all. I just think that we bring thinking, a different kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. Not that it's any better or any worse, but it's different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, as a mom, you know, you're carrying a baby here and a basket here and you're doing something else at the same time. So that's where I think that our brains just kind of work a little differently. Again, not that it's better or worse than anybody else, but it's just different. And I think that that leads to an opportunity to do things in a different manner that hopefully will make a positive change.
So before we get into what it is that you campaigned upon,
okay.
your
platform,
if you will, let's say your ballot, what is the Oxnard Harbor District?
Well, it is a special district, and it is it's funded through the revenues that come into the port. So it has operated forever without any taxpayer dollars, which I think is really important, and important to remember to keep that so the taxpayers aren't going to have to subsidize the port at all. So you do it all through the revenues that come in. There are about $7 billion of cargo that comes in through that port every year. I mean, it's a huge amount that's coming in, mainly cars and bananas. It's pretty fascinating. So that kind of led me to running for the board because it's a fascinating entity that many people don't even know exists and confuse it all the time with the Channel Islands Harbor. Oh, yeah, I have my boat out there. It's like, nah, you don't, not unless it's 700 feet long. But there's a lot of really neat things that are going on out there. Very few tenants. So it's not, I can understand why people aren't aware of it. But it's a great economic engine. There's a lot of jobs that are created because of the business that comes into the port. And so the commissioner's role is to provide the policy and the oversight for everything that happens out there at the Port of Hueneme.
Now, in order to run, you had to live in the city of Oxnard?
You have to live within the district. So the district is a little convoluted. It's most of Oxnard and Port Hueneme. So, you know, it was about 82,000 voters that came in that district. So you have to live within the district in order to run.
And how long is the term? 4
years. So I get a commissioner degree at the end of all this? No. I'm just kidding.
And is there turnover because different terms come up at different times?
Yeah, they stagger, much like a city council would stagger. So 2 years from now, there'll be 2 commissioners who will be up for election. And then, like here, we had 3 commissioners that were up. So it's 3-2, 3-2. You need to maintain some of the institutional knowledge that's on a board. I think that's a good thing to be able to keep that instead of turning over an entire new board, which I'm sure that would drive staff absolutely crazy.
Plus the learning curve and getting everybody up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot to learn. I think that because of my work has been affiliated with the port over the last couple of years, I have a little bit more information than perhaps someone just coming in cold. But there's a lot to learn. I mean, there are so many things, and I came home with binders, this much of binders of things to read and get caught up on. You know, being in public office before with a college district helps me to understand what the Brown Act is, helps me to understand where the ethics come into it and what you have to report out, things like that. So I have a good base of knowledge there, but the actual inner workings of the Port of Hueneme, I have a lot to learn on there. So.
And is it considered a part-time job or?
Well, I view it as public service. You do receive a stipend, and but you can put as many hours into it that you want or not, and it just really depends on the elected officials. So I'm not going to be out there every day sitting in the Harbor District offices. They probably wouldn't like that anyway, because I believe that it's a policy role and it's something that you provide oversight for. If you're in the middle of all of it, you have the opportunity to shift out of your role as a policymaker, and so I'm very cognizant of that fact, and I want to stay in that role, not manage the staff, but provide the policy on it.
Right.
I'm a stickler on that. So
good.
Yeah.
We're visiting with Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner Mary Ann Rooney. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to go into the campaign, what that was like, and then also what her vision is. You're watching the Maria Sanchez Show right here on KADYTV.com. Thank you. The Maria Sanchez Show is about the county, by the county, and for the county. Whether we're broadcasting live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, checking in with the leaders in our communities, hearing from our elected officials, helping to promote public safety, preparedness, and wellness. We are here for the needs of Ventura County. The Maria Sanchez Show is also about entertainment and events. Sharing information, creating awareness, and supporting those in need. Won't you join us as we rewrite the rules of local television on the Maria Sanchez Show at www.kadytv.com. Depending on what's going on in the county and depending on the internet connection, we can broadcast those live, or we come right back to the studio and upload them so that you can see what was going on and around the county. And if there's anything you'd like us to know about, follow, promote, help publicize, please let us know, because we depend on you to be our eyes and our ears as well. We're continuing our conversation with Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner Mary Ann Rooney. Mary Ann, thanks again for taking the time to visit with us today.
Happy to be here.
And it was fascinating to hear about what went up to the election. How long did you campaign, and was it what you expected?
Well, I started campaigning officially last October.
Oh, my.
Now, when you talk about campaigning, to me, that was starting the initial conversations with some key decision makers around the county. It's about, floating a few balloons to see, hey, that's what I'm thinking, what do you think? And testing the waters a bit. So that happened last October. And then in January, I kind of came out with a pretty soft announcement to try to gather some key endorsements. I went back and I was reflecting this week as I'm trying to clean up my office because I'm suffering from campaign neglect at my house. And I looked at my wall, and it had the whole year mapped out. So starting with January, looking at how is it that I'm going to step through to run an effective campaign. And it's about getting key endorsements. It's about fundraising, developing your team to support you, looking at ways, developing the platform. And putting everything in place. In my October slot, it said, be everywhere. And so that was that was the goal. Be everywhere and talk to everybody and really get out there. So, everybody does it a little differently, but, I ran on a very tight budget, as there were 172 candidates this year for 72 spots around the county. So a lot of people asking for a lot of money, and so it was tight. And so I had to run it very strategically, and so I think that I'm a good strategic planner and was able to bring in a business sense into the campaign and really just focus on how am I going to do it in the most effective way.
Well, and how would you know what kind of a budget to set up? I mean, we just found out with Meg Whitman that all the money in the world doesn't guarantee you success.
Well, I think if she would have said, I'm going to spend $150,000 or $150 million on my campaign, but I'm going to spend $50 million on actual promotion and give the other $100 million to education or something else, I think it might have been a better strategy for her to do that. But she didn't ask me anyways. But what I determined was that probably $1 a vote was going to work. So that's what I did for my last campaign, was $1 a vote. So if I anticipated I needed 20,000 votes to win. Well, that was before the other 7 candidates decided that they were going to come out to the race too. So it went down, and I determined I needed 13,000 to win. So I adjusted the budget down and looked at 13,000. That's actually what my budget came in at. So it's $1 a vote is how I looked at it. But it depends on when are you developing your budget, who's all running. How much outside support are you going to get? For me, it's really important to have a lot of smaller donations because to me that's really grassroots.
Right.
To ask individuals to say, this is what I'd like to do.
Because they're buying in.
And they're buying in. Yeah. And they're supporting me.
Now, as far as endorsements go, did you get endorsements from your district or from the county?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was important for me to reach out to the areas that serve the district itself. I was fortunate enough to have all of the city council members from Oxnard endorse my campaign.
Wow.
So that was really important to me to have all of them, and they did. I had a majority of the Port Hueneme City Council endorse my campaign as well. And then both the supervisors that serve that area. So John Zaragoza and Kathy Long. So those were key people in my mind to have endorse me.
And why would they endorse you, Marianne? Not that you weren't worthy, but what was it that you evoked in them that they put their name behind yours?
Well, I think that they saw that I had a vision for the port, and it wasn't just to come in and just sit on a board or a lot of people think you travel a lot, so that's why you would do it. They saw that I wanted to work hard to make the port better. I mean, it's been doing a great job, and the staff has been doing an awesome job. Granted, the economy has been down over the last few years, but it's on the way back up, and I believe that the board has been doing a good job doing that. I think that they saw that I had different ideas, more creative ideas that may or may not have been thought of, but we could try them out. And I bring an energy that they saw would be beneficial to the port. So, of course, you'd probably have to ask them specifically, but that's what I think.
To get all of the council members in Oxnard, most of them in Port Hueneme, 2 of the supervisors that actually touch, that sounds like a slam dunk to me.
Well, you can have all the endorsements in the world.
True, but don't you think that matters a lot?
I think that they think either one of 2 ways. They go, wow, she's got these endorsements. That's great. That's awesome. I'll vote for her. Wow, she's got all these endorsements. Well, I don't know I don't like that person or I don't like that person. So it's a double-edged sword. So you can benefit from the endorsements, and some people think, they're just endorsements. They don't matter. What about the average voter? So, it depends on how you look at it. And voters vote for the oddest things, and you just never know why they're going to vote. But
that's the whole point, is that it's not scientific.
You
can analyze it as much as you want, and then it's that person, their ballot, that day, who knows. But to your credit, it worked. Whatever you did right. So you can't argue with success.
Well, thank you. I feel like I did a spattering of things, and that's how I believe that you do with marketing. You do a lot of things to try to catch somebody. So that included these big old signs on the freeway, that I was fortunate enough to be able to put up. Smaller signs, yard signs, what I called mobile signs, bumper stickers. talking to people, I did a little bit of radio, and it's a little bit of everything. And I think that you have to go broad in order to do that. And I feel like my strategy was in place. I almost wavered from it, and I kept asking my advisors, look, make sure I'm right on here. Am I on track? Should I be going in another direction? And that's where your team around you is a huge part of it, because when you freak out that day and you call them up and go, what am I doing here? Should I stay on track? And then they go, don't waver. Just even the words, don't waver. I mean, that to me is powerful. And there were a lot of people involved, a lot of people talking about it, and a lot of people supporting it. I think what benefited me was that I may have been the second or third choice for some people, for different groups of some people. Mm-hmm. So people who supported this candidate, I might have been the second or third. I don't care. It's all right by me.
Yeah.
But if 4 different candidates had me as a second or third choice, then I think that was, that came into play.
And you make a good point, is that you don't necessarily have to be number 1 in everybody's mind, but if you're in the top 3, you're going to be in the top 3 with the vote getters, and that's all that matters.
That was it.
It reminds me of tempering ambition a little bit, because I think everyone who runs wants to be the king or queen, if you will, but sometimes second means that then you get into the runoffs, right? Or you go from the primary to the general election. Right. And second isn't so bad if you're only one of 2 on the ballot in November. I mean, not that you want to strive for second, but second is going to get you in November, right?
Right. And I mean, the thing is with me is that I kept saying, all I need to do is show, like the horse races, all I need to do is show. That was it. So, and that's what I did. Did I want to win? Sure. I mean, there's ego that comes into play. And then there goes, but I've planned this party for a whole year, and I hope somebody will turn up. And that's what the election was. Mapping out a party. Only the party was a vote. And it's like, is anybody going to come? And that's where it is. When you stand there and you go, is anybody going to show up to my party? And thank goodness they did. And I'm very grateful. So, yay!
We're going to take a break only because we're going to stop tape, and then we're going to come right back and we'll talk about your visions and what it is that you want, and then if you want any input from the community as well. Maria Sanchez Show, Marianne Rooney, Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner elect.
Elect.
We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Maria's talking, so call Maria, her show is killer. You won't believe it, darling, there's long-time listeners and first-time callers. They love Maria, that's why they keep saying, and we're gonna get loud, but we're gonna get close. She's here and she's going.
Welcome back to the Maria Sanchez Show. We're live. It's Monday, November 22nd. Thank you so much for joining us. We're continuing our conversation with Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner Marianne Rooney. She has taken the time to visit with us this afternoon, speaking about her background, about the fact that she's the first female elected to the Harbor District, about her campaign, and now we want to give her an opportunity to talk about what it is that she was running on her platform and what she hopes to do with the Harbor. So again, Marianne, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks.
Fascinating. Didn't know any about this. So I'm a student of life, so you're just feeding right into my curriculum.
Oh, that's good. Well, I didn't realize that was going to happen today, but that's okay. So, I think one of the things that I learned through the campaign is that people confuse the Port of Hueneme with the Channel Islands Harbor.
Now, for those folks who may be watching that don't live in the county, because we are on the World Wide Web, the Channel Islands Harbor is the one that has the yacht clubs on it and the sailboats mostly docked
in it. It's a marina.
Right.
It's owned by the county and run by the county.
On it and lodging and et cetera. Now,
Channel Islands Harbor.
Right.
Yeah.
So then the Oxnard Harbor.
the Port of Hueneme
Harbor
is governed by the Oxnard Harbor District.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified
So
that.
that's kind of where I think that the confusion comes in.
Absolutely.
Everybody around the world knows us as the Port of Hueneme.
Right.
Okay? So all the other ports in the world, Port of Los Angeles, the Port of Long Beach, the Port of, Stockton, it's all a port. And we refer to ourselves as the harbor district. So I can see where the confusion comes in, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's okay too at the same time, because not many people touch the Port of Hueneme. So I think there's a little name identity crisis going on. So if we could maybe perhaps clarify that, because the Oxnard Harbor District is actually the body that oversees the Port of Hueneme. So.
And the Port of Hueneme is where all the big freighters come in. So that's where we get the
ships
cars.
Come in,
and,
right?
And the military. Too,
I think you need to come out for a tour.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
Although I met one of the tugboat captains at a dinner last week, and he's like, "Yo, we'll come bring you out on the tugboats." And I said, "Well, if it starts doing a circle like I know it can do, you better have some barf bags ready for me, because I won't do very well on that." But these tugboats actually push the ships in to the wharf so it can dock and everything. Very powerful on what they can do. But yeah, it's the Port of Hueneme. It's shared with the Navy. So part of the area inside is a harbor district owned, and then the other part is the Navy base. So we share one of the wharfs in there too. But there's a lot going on in there, but we have just the one portion of it there, and then the land that's affiliated with it too.
And what did you want to do different?
Well, I think that for me, it's a real economic engine. As you increase the business that's there on the port, there are going to be jobs created off of the port. And so what I saw was a way for us to use an economic development model to help the current tenants that are there do more business, but keeping in mind, and be cautious of the environmental impacts that would go around with that too. So I believe that you can do some great economic development strategies to help them increase, and I believe that you can do that through utilizing the World Trade Center that we have. That is a resource that has been just in name only. It hasn't really been developed. And so I see a way that we can utilize that resource to allow our current tenants and other businesses here in Ventura County to reach out to the entire world, to allow them to go out and establish new business contacts. Let's say countries around the world want to come here and meet some of our businesses. We can provide that opportunity and be the liaison to help them do that and start that relationship. So for me, the World Trade Center, getting that up and running and being very active was something that I'm very interested in doing. How we do it is up for discussion, because I need to see how it's all going to work together. But to at least push an agenda forward, I told the executive director who came in from Washington last week to talk about the ports in general. I said, "So, when I get involved with your organization," he's like, "Great, what do you like?" And I said, "Economic development." He said, "Great, we have a committee for that." So they will quickly find out that I jump in. I like to help wherever I can and try to bring that information back to our port to say, here's an opportunity for us. Does it work? Does it not work? Do we look at it? Do we become better? So I think that there's ways when you are working and collaborating with other people outside of your area, you have the opportunity to do some powerful things. So that's what I hope to do.
Now, what if you make a suggestion, how does it get implemented? What is it, a majority vote, or does it go to the powers that be that are higher, or is there such a thing?
The powers that be that higher. That's the taxpayers. So, this is their resource. Even though no money is allocated to run this district, it is their resource, and that's how I view it.
Not the 82,000 people?
Yes.
So even though that port has impact in our entire county, it really boils down to the 82,000?
That is a very good statement, because I view the Port of Hueneme as a county-wide resource. as a Central Coast California resource.
Correct.
Rather than going into LA and Long Beach all the time, is there an opportunity? It's a very small port. There's not a whole lot of room for growth, physically that's going on there. But is there a way that the port can utilize the resources that it has to make an impact in the rest of our area? I think so. And how we go about doing that is up for discussion. You ask the question, how does that happen? Well, the Board of Commissioners are the policymakers. Mm-hmm. So if the commissioners say, we want to look at ways to increase economic development in our area, then that's a directive to staff. So it's the commissioners who decide the policy of that. The policy is move the economic development and look at alternatives to help businesses in the community.
Okay,
Then
for
it's on
example,
staff.
let's take advantage of those ships that offload as they're leaving, they're empty. Let's put a product on there as long as they're going.
Right.
And be efficient with their exit.
Right.
Who would make that decision?
So the Board of Commissioners would say, okay, our policy is that we want to increase exports in the region. Then we would say to the executive director, please, this is a priority for us, come back to us with ways on how you're going to do it. We don't manage. We govern. Right. And we allow the executive director to go back to staff and say, okay, here's our direction.
Right.
That's from a policy. Now figure out how we're going to do. And that should govern what their workload is.
Now, if somebody's watching and they're saying, you know what, this is fascinating, I never knew anything about this, how can I get involved? Is there an opportunity for the general public to either volunteer or donate or?
I don't think there's a way for them to volunteer or donate right now. I mean, it's a special district, so we operate on our revenues. But they can go to the website, it's portofwainimi.org, and they can see everything that's going on at the port right now and find out, if there's something of interest.
Starting with a tour?
You can have a tour. Maria, we're going to put Maria on the tour right away. And have it actually, they run tours all the time. It's very fascinating. I was just out there last week to see the cars coming off, the ships and everything. It's very fascinating. So there's a way, school groups can come out, if you're interested in a group coming out to go through a tour, I call them up and schedule it. It's really fascinating and very informative.
And I have to say, having been in the Silver Strand area and watching the ships come in, it's almost, it's surreal because it's like this huge metropolitan entity is just coming, and quietly so.
And it's fascinating to see how the water is very deep. Mm-hmm. Just right outside of there. It's a fascinating thing of how far down that canyon goes. Yeah.
Which makes for world-class waves too.
Actually,
at Silver Strand.
At Silver Strand, but it blocks the harbor.
Right.
And so the water is very calm inside.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating just from a geological perspective too. But you learn a lot when you go on the tour of the port. Mm-hmm. It is pretty fascinating. So, okay, we'll have to have you come out and do it.
Sounds like
First order of business. Schedule Maria for a tour. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a field trip.
There you go. Field trip for Maria. Woo! Bring your cameras.
Marianne, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Oxnard Harbor District Commissioner-elect Marianne Rooney. As if, let's talk about a hyphenate.
It's like,
on January 10th, she becomes official. And thank you so much for joining us. It was inspiring and educational. And thank you for watching the Maria Sanchez Show right here on KADYTV.com. Hope you have a great evening. See you tomorrow.